Hello and welcome to a very special podcast series, Unusual Suspects. I'm your host, Gaurav Choudhury. This is a series about unraveling stories of entrepreneurs, investors, professional experts, and policymakers, among others. Unusual Suspects streams on Earshot.in, Spotify.com, Apple Podcasts, MoneyControl.com, and a host of other podcast streaming platforms. As Budget 2026 approaches, India must take tough calls to grow its manufacturing base at a time when geopolitical tensions are reshaping trade. India's recent budgets have been framed with the 2047 Viksit Bharat or developed economy vision. And the government emphasizes reforms will be the core engine that steer India towards its ambitious goal. For this episode of Unusual Suspects, we will explore what specific policy interventions and mindset changes will help India emerge as a global manufacturing hub, particularly in the context of the emerging geopolitical trade realignments, particularly in the context of customs and tariffs. With a focus on customs duties, we will examine the key issues that must be addressed to make Indian exports competitive and push us towards a manufacturing export led growth. Joining me today for deeper insights is Rajat Bose, partner at Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas and Company. Delighted to have you on the show, Rajat. Welcome.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for having me on the show.
Rajat, uh, we all know what's happening in the world of geopolitical strategic realignments. It's manifesting itself in all kinds of trade realignments too. And India, of course, has been at the receiving end, if I may say so. And against this backdrop of rising global trade tensions, there's a tariff war that we find ourselves in the midst of. What should be, given that the budget is just around the corner, what should be India's core customs and trade priorities in the budget for 2026 to protect exporters while also at the same time remaining globally competitive? Rajat?
So I feel, Gaurav, there is, particularly from a customs standpoint, there is a lot of scope for uh, streamlining the processes, uh, which would in turn help businesses uh, improve their efficiencies and pass on that efficiencies to their customers, whether it's the global market or the domestic market. Now, when I say processes, one of the things which the government should emphasize on is the mechanism to undertake a mechanism to build a single window clearance systems for import of goods into India. Now, what we have seen over the past couple of years, many products which are being imported into India are being increasingly subject to various import licenses. For instance, there is over the last couple of years an increase in the number of products which require a BIS certification when being imported into India. Similarly, there are other products, whether it's in the defense sector or in the telecommunication sector, which require, or for that matter, in the in the electronic manufacturing sector, which require various licenses. Now, what we've seen is that there are multiple agencies who deal with these license systems where businesses are unnecessarily spending their resources in trying to get all these licenses, which in turn is affecting the efficiencies both from a human resource perspective as well as a financial resource perspective. So I feel that one of the focus areas should be how to streamline all these requirements into one single window system where an importer goes and files an application with the customs, and then customs can appoint a nodal officer who takes care of everything and gets this all these compliances done for you. So that should, in my mind, would benefit a lot of importers in India to focus on their core activity, which is doing business. Apart from that, also what we understood, or what I understand, is that there is a lot of discussion and debate in rationalizing the number of slabs of customs duties. uh, as we all know, that last year something similar happened in case of GST, where some of the products, the rates of duties were rejigged so that the number of slabs were reduced. Now, what we have right now from a custom standpoint is approximately eight different rates of duties on goods. And I think the endeavor should be to reduce this number eight to somewhere around number four or five. Because the more number of rates you have, the possibilities of classification disputes increases. So therefore, I think one of the main areas for the finance ministry would be to look at the number of slabs under customs and try and bring it down from eight to maybe four or five. So I think these are the two areas where the revenue department will focus on in this budget.
Rajat, there's also a question of striking a balance, given the fact that we face ourselves with a situation where our exports are facing a massive tariff wall. At the same time, we also are seeking to rationalize our own tariffs for so far as imports are concerned, because a large part of our manufacturing exports are also dependent on imported raw material. We need to improve our export competitiveness, and I think that's a no-brainer. Uh, because we have an Atmanirbhar goal in place. This is where you possibly, as a policymaker, could be caught in a situation where two competing goals are pulling in different directions. How do you strike an equilibrium where you achieve both the goals without moving only in one direction, Rajat?
Yeah. No, see, I honestly, I feel that one country imposing tariffs or additional tariffs on us should not make that big a difference. Uh, and I feel that the better way of dealing with this situation, rather than cutting the import duties on goods which are used in manufacturing and exporting, a better way to deal with the situation would be to sort of look at expanding your markets and see where are the other areas where you could possibly export, and where the tariffs are sort of, I won't say favorable, but they are not prohibitive. And there are, I think, many regions around the world, around where I think we have not, as a country, explored the markets and its potential. So I feel that is something which, again, uh, what I believe is that the government is doing uh, whatever it can to ensure that the access to those markets are open for Indian exporters, so that the impact of the tariffs which a certain country has imposed on us can be minimized. But
You know,
certainly, I feel that even from a Make in India perspective, this is sort of something which we've been seeing for the last 7 8 years, where every year during the budget, the duty rates on finished products are being increased, and the duty rates on components for manufacturing finished products are decreasing.
right.
Basically, simple thought process that finished goods should be manufactured in India. So discourage the imports of finished goods and encourage the imports of raw materials so that the manufacturing can be cost effective. I think that theme would more or less uh, will continue during this budget as well.
Rajat, you talked about markets that still remain largely under exploited so far as Indian exports is concerned, and there are a large number of markets that probably we can actually reach out to, and these are newer geographies uh, that we should probably look out to. What, in your view, are the new and emerging geographies India can actively target over the next 3 to 5 years? We have to look beyond the traditional destinations, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. I think two very crucial markets. One is LATAM, is
Hmm.
something which we need to tap into. Again, their demographies are favorable. They have a growing population. Again, the young population is also growing in LATAM, so that's something which definitely can be looked at. And second, of course, is Africa. I think there also the potential is huge. The only uh, I would say the probably as far as Africa is concerned, we are a bit late because China is
Yeah.
there in a very big way, and to compete with China in itself is a challenge anywhere in the world. So Africa again will be something which will be interesting to see if we can tap that market. But LATAM is a certain something which definitely is there on the cards.
Let's change tack a bit. Let's focus a little bit on the FTAs, which is clearly the keyword now, and we are in active conversation of 2026 probably could be the year of the big FTAs so far as India is concerned with EU, even possibly with the US too, with its expanding FTA network. And negotiations with EU are on. UK is in place. What complementary customs reforms are required to ensure Indian exporters actually benefit from these agreements? Because I'm asking this question because a large number of India's exports, or 45% of India's manufacturing exports, are carried out by MSMEs. MSMEs, as you would agree, is the lifeblood of the Indian economy. More than 60 million MSMEs employing more than 110 million people. These FTAs eventually should end up benefiting these MSMEs. Otherwise, the goal will probably be lost. So, how can we go about achieving this, and what can the budget do for it, Rajat?
Hmm. Okay, see, look again, FTAs, as you know, it's like a seesaw, right? So you have to balance it out.
Hmm.
And most of the times, when you are giving a concession, the reciprocating country also will expect the same kind of concessions. So
Right.
when let's for example let's talk about um, the Indian pharma sector, right? So now, if you are expecting the EU to give you concessions on your drugs, then you will also expect that you give certain concessions on their drugs, right? And you know that major drug manufacturers, pharmaceuticals are based out of the EU, whether it's Pfizer or Sanofi. So they are the big guys, and they are all there. So it's a tricky situation, and the we should not look at it from the lens of look what happened with us when we had the FTA with Japan or Korea or other Southeast Asian countries, because those FTAs were signed in a very different era,
Right.
and now we are talking about a very different situation. So we
Right.
cannot sort of equate, because when we signed an FTA with Japan, at that time, from a manufacturing capability perspective, we were far behind than what we are now. That was signed some, let's say, 15-20 years back, and we are now in a situation where if we have to give a concession, we'll have to think about a lot of other factors, including what will happen to our domestic industry, for that matter, right? So, the Commerce Ministry has its task cut out, and that's the reason why many of these FTAs are taking so long to conclude as well. Because you need to think a lot about a lot many things nowadays. So I think while we should be optimistic about the fact that some FTAs are likely to get signed this year, but again, we have to be cognizant of the fact that we need to protect the domestic industry also, so that we don't get flooded with products from the EU or from other countries where we are looking to sign an FTA with.
Now, you talked about newer geographies like Africa, Latin America, and even ASEAN probably could be a relatively new geography again if we reinvent ourselves with a
I
the
don't think anybody likes us in ASEAN anymore.
that's right. So,
so,
so probably
so
we need to.
SARC is dead. SARC is dead, which was one of our biggest markets. That's gone. So now we are looking at a very small ASEAN. Anyway,
Yeah, right.
yes.
And I think it's time to reinvent our relationship with ASEAN through a new uh, completely overhauled, or if I may say, an expanded CICA or an FTA. But my question is a little bit more narrow focused. How can targeted customs duty rationalization on export inputs and intermediaries meaningfully improve India's cost competitiveness, exports cost competitiveness in these geographies like Latin America or Africa or even ASEAN? Raja?
Mm, mm. So look, for export, we already have a lot of concessions on the import side. So if
Mm.
you are, let's say, an export-oriented unit, and you're operating out of one of these export zones, so whether it's an EOU or an SEZ, anyway, your inputs are tax-free because there are schemes under which you can import goods, raw materials, as well as capital goods without payment of duty, as long as you are sort of meeting a particular threshold for your exports. So I feel that any further fiscal incentive for exporters should come from some other areas, not from customs, because customs duty anyway doesn't matter for exports. Either you will get a refund of your inputs or it will be exempted upfront. But yes, as far as export competitiveness is concerned, I feel that you should really focus on building the infrastructure in India to ensure that these products become cost effective. For instance, build roads, build a better logistic system, build better railways, internal logistic, internal transportation, cheaper electricity. All these factors will help manufacturer exporters actually lower their costs.
Right. Rajat, let's talk a little bit about the, India's flagship export facilitation tool, the AEO. The AEO program, um, as it gets rolled in 2026, will complete a decade, and that's a long time.
Yes.
Is this a right time to reposition this tool and take a relook at it, especially for trusted exporters? Do you think there's time for some kind of an overhaul or to press the refresh or reset button on this?
I won't say an overall. It is working well. I think the threshold for getting an AEO certification can be eased. In the sense, so there are three tiers of AEO: tier one, tier two, tier three. So uh, uh, the threshold for getting a tier one is actually very very high. For tier 3 it's not so much, and tier 2 it's the middle, but the real benefits of AEO are actually in tier 2 and tier 1. So I would say that the government should look at easing some of these norms for qualifying as a tier 2 or a tier 1 AEO, uh, as well as there are certain, I would say, there are certain issues in that which should be ironed out. Some, things like if you have any kind of a dispute or a notice or anything pending with the customs authority, you cannot apply for, or you cannot get a AEO certification. Now, I feel that today's day and age, 90% of the companies who are importing or exporting will be running into some kind of dispute with the customs at some point of time. So really, you cannot have that as a criteria for denying somebody an AEO certification. So, maybe minor tweaks here and there. Listen to the industry, hear their concerns, and then tweak it so that maximum number of exporters can get the benefit of the AEO scheme.
Also, staying on that point, it's critical and essential to integrate the EU benefits in light of the new trade realignments, and also probably building the EU framework into the mainstream conversation of FTAs and any kind of trade agreements that we are in
Hmm.
conversation and discussion with, isn't it?
Absolutely. And AEO is also something which is globally recognized. So it is a system where, I mean, even other countries have these kind of systems, and it carries a lot of weight. So when you are negotiating at a global level, negotiating an FTA or some kind of a bilateral agreement, uh, they do look at how well the system is working, whether the companies are really deriving that kind of benefit from these schemes. So all these things really do matter. So yes, you're right when you say that when you're looking at these bilateral agreements, FTA, etc., then these kind of EO schemes, etc., become very important.
Finally, and since this is budget season, if Budget 2026 gets customs and trade policy right, which single reform, according to you, could have the biggest multiplier effect on India's export and global supply chain integration? Rajat?
I feel a couple of things. One is that you will need to ease out certain these you need ease out these license and compliance systems. You'll have to find a better way of managing these. And number two is that you'll have to improve the uh, infrastructure of and give that kind of a environment to the export to the manufacturer exporters, who are then confident of being able to give a quality product at a cost effective price. And that's the most important thing, because we are not only fighting on the tariffs, we are also sort of have a kind of a, what should I say, an image or a reputation about the quality of our product. So both have to be top notch, so you will have to give that quality. We can't be seen as something which, it's not like just because China manufactures something which are not at par from as far as quality is concerned. We should not be also seen from that particular lens. So we should stand out as a country which makes good and quality product, and we can also sort of deliver it at a cost effective price. If we can achieve these two, and I think in that case we should certainly uh, you know uh, tide over this tariff issues quite easily.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rajat, so much for sharing your deep insights and perspective on a range of issues, particularly in the area of customs tariffs and related areas, given the fact that we find ourselves in an extremely, if I may say so, a difficult period and also a complex period and rapidly evolving. And thanks for sharing your suggestions and what the budget probably could end up doing to release strong multiplier effects for India's exporters. Thank you for so much for taking part in this podcast.